Today, we hear Jesus speak at a meal, an ordinary setting for extraordinary truth. He's been invited to dine with a Pharisee, and as he watches people scramble for the best seats at the table, he offers a lesson. Don't push yourself into the seat of honor. Don't look for recognition. Instead, humble yourself. And then he goes even further. Don't just invite your friends and your neighbors and the people who can pay you back. Invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Invite those who cannot repay you, because this is what God's kingdom looks like. It's a radical teaching. Jesus flips the script on everything the world tells us about where to sit and who matters and who belongs. And I want to suggest that this teaching is not only about ancient table manners, it's about life and death. Because this week, once again, our country grieves a shooting. This time in Minnesota, another young person so isolated, so broken, that they turned their pain outward in violence. Another community shattered. And as I hear Jesus tell us to invite the outcast to the table, I cannot but help but wonder what would have happened if this person had felt they had a seat at someone's table. What might have been different if somewhere along the way, they had been welcomed and seen and loved, not because they could repay, but simply because they were a child of God. In Jesus' time, meals were a sign of status: who you ate with, where you sat, and whether you were invited at all. These things shaped your place in society. And it's not so different today, especially for our young people. The school cafeteria can feel like a battlefield. Who sits where, who's welcome, who's left out. And it doesn't end at school. Social media tracks our status every hour. Who liked your post, who didn't, who's in, who's out. Jesus cuts through all of that. He says, in God's kingdom, the table is not about status, it's about grace. It's not about who can pay you back, it's about who most needs to be fed. That's good news. It's also a challenge, because it means we have to look around at our own tables, our churches, our schools, our families, and ask who is missing, who doesn't feel welcome, who has been pushed to the edges. And when we fail to ask those questions, the consequences can be devastating. Because being left out, being unseen, doesn't just hurt feelings, it wounds the soul. And sometimes it destroys lives. When people feel they don't belong, when they are bullied or ignored, when they live with poverty and racism and mental illness or family trauma, and no one draws them in, the pain builds, and some turn it inward and have depression or despair, and others tragically turn it outward through violence. I want to be clear, no one choice to exclude someone makes us responsible for a shooting. These situations are complex. There's no simple explanation. I'm certainly not defending those who choose to harm others. Violence comes from many factors, including access to guns and broken systems of care and deep spiritual and emotional wounds. But I also believe that hospitality, that practice of welcome, the daily decision to notice and include those who are marginalized, is one way we join God in interrupting cycles of pain and destruction. Jesus doesn't just say, invite your friends. He doesn't even just say, be polite. He says, invite those who cannot repay you. Invite the people who are invisible to everyone else. That's prevention. That's healing before the wound festers. That's choosing to sit with the kid who eats alone. It's reaching out to the neighbor whose clothes are shabby or whose accent is different. It's listening without judgment to the person who is angry or withdrawn. And sometimes, let's be honest, that welcome will feel awkward. And sometimes we'll wonder what to say, And sometimes it will cost us in terms of comfort or reputation. But every time we extend a hand, we are helping someone know you belong. And that belonging can be the difference between despair and hope, between bitterness and healing, and even between life and death. Luke's gospel is full of meals. Again and again, Jesus eats with the wrong people, tax collectors, sinners, outcasts. He feeds 5,000 hungry strangers. He breaks bread with his friends on the night before he dies, and he is known after the resurrection for the breaking of bread. Every meal is a preview of God's great banquet where all are welcome. That banquet is not just a metaphor for heaven someday, it's a calling for us now. When we widen our tables, when we make room for those on the margins, we're living into the kingdom. We are proclaiming with our actions, God's love is for you. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are part of the family. So what does this mean for us, especially for young people who live in such a high-pressured, high-stakes environment? It means that when we notice someone sitting alone, we have the power to make a kingdom-sized choice. We can pull up a chair and say, come sit with me. It means that when we hear someone being mocked, we can stand up and say, that's not okay. It means that when someone is different or difficult or angry, we can choose curiosity over judgment and say, tell me what's going on. These aren't small things. These are holy acts of hospitality. They are living out Jesus' command to invite the ones no one else invites. And as adults and Christians, we need to model this. Our kids learn by watching us. Do we invite neighbors who can't repay us? Do we reach across divides of race and class and politics? Do we make room for people whose struggles are uncomfortable? If we don't, how can we expect our young people to know how? Of course, this is not only about individual choices. The shooter in Minnesota didn't just fall through the cracks because no one sat with them at lunch. They fell through because we live in a society that marginalizes whole groups of people. A society where access to mental health care is limited, where guns are plentiful, where racism and poverty trap families in cycles of despair, where communities are fragmented. We live in a society that is increasingly defined in terms of we and them, red and blue, where the lines of division are so deep and so painful that some people decide that eliminating the other side is the only option. Hospitality means not only setting another place at our personal table, but also asking, how do we shape a society where everyone has a seat? How do we advocate for schools with counselors who can help, for neighborhoods where every child is safe, for a culture that values life over violence? That's the larger banquet Jesus calls us to prepare, a just and merciful society. Now here at St. John's, we have groups that focus on all of these things, as many of you know. And here's a shameless plug. If you're not already involved, I urge you to explore those options, and we're having a ministry fair on September 21st at coffee hour. So if you're curious, come and find out about how you can deepen all of your connections to this community. At the heart of this vision is the cross. Jesus himself was excluded, rejected, humiliated, pushed outside the city walls. But in his death and resurrection, he turned that exclusion into the ultimate act of welcome. He stretched out his arms on the cross to say, all are welcome, all have a place, all are beloved. When we practice hospitality, we are not just being nice, we are embodying the very heart of that gospel. As we grieve another shooting, as we ache for the brokenness of our world, let's take Jesus at his word. Let's not scramble for the best seats or limit our invitations to those who can repay us. Let's look for the ones who are left out and draw them in. Let's teach our children that the goal is not popularity, but hospitality. That success is not measured in likes or followers, but in the lives we welcome and the dignity we affirm. Let's create communities where no one feels so invisible, so unwanted, that violence seems the only way to be seen. The banquet is set. God is the host, and the invitation is for all. Let's not rest until every child, every neighbor, every stranger knows they have a seat at the table. Because when we widen the circle and when we welcome the marginalized, we're not only obeying Jesus' command, we may also be saving lives. In the name of God, who welcomes us all, amen.